We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed.
It really didn't happen in Vietnam. I mean, it went from North Vietnam to South Vietnam, and now we're doing business with these people.
The U.S. government viewed involvement in the war as a way to prevent a communist takeover of South Vietnam as part of their wider strategy of containment. Containment was a United States policy in order to prevent the spread of communism to other or neighboring countries. This was a key component of the Cold War.
The Vietnam War was the prolonged struggle between nationalist forces attempting to unify the country of Vietnam under a communist government, and the United States, with the aid of the South Vietnamese, was attempting to prevent the spread of communism. There had been fighting in Vietnam for decades before the Vietnam War began. The Vietnamese had suffered under French colonial rule for nearly 6 decades when Japan invaded portions of Vietnam in 1940.
President Johnson's goal for U.S. involvement in Vietnam was not for the U.S. to win the war, but for U.S. troops to bolster South Vietnam's defenses until South Vietnam could take over. By entering the Vietnam War without a goal to win, Johnson set the stage for the future public and troop disappointment when the U.S. found themselves in a deadlock with the North Vietnamese.
There were a lot of adults that were against segregation, and of course, when you have that mindset where the parents are so against something that could be a good thing, the children are affected. So in the schools, there was a lot of hatred and a lot of being unsettled.
But there were still many discriminating practices used to prevent African Americans from voting. The Voting Rights Act eradicated these practices completely.
The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a major step in the right direction that outlawed discrimination of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, etc.
And then Monday morning, when we started school, there were only a few people around, and I thought maybe, well, they just here to be curious and they wanted to see us come in. And on Wednesday morning, I almost tried to go back home because there were so many people, and they looked so mean. They looked like they just wanted to grab us and throw us out. They didn't want us at all. I could just see the hate in their hearts. And when we got inside the school, most of the children were very nice to us. And then there were some, you could tell that they didn't want us there. They really showed it in a big way. They put signs on lockers and told us to get out, and they threw paper at us, and it just made me feel bad, and I couldn't concentrate at all on my lesson.
The only difference between it and South Africa preaches separation and practices separation. America preaches integration and practices segregation. This is the only difference. They don't practice what they preach, whereas South Africa preaches and practices the same thing. I have more respect for a man who lets me know where he stands, even if he's wrong, than the one who comes up like an angel and is nothing but a devil.
Chaotic is a great word for it. With integration, what happened is all of the kids that went to Carver, the African American kids that went to Carver, all grew up together in that particular district. And then in 1973, they broke up the school in fourths and put them on buses. They had to catch a bus every day. Some of these kids were on the bus for like an hour to school and an hour to get home from school. And they would drive right by their neighborhood, or right by the high school that had been closed down because of integration, and drive on the other side of town to another high school. And what happened as a result of that, they were split apart from the friends that they had grown up with and gone to school with and sent to these other high schools.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, by all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Maybe we change something. Maybe we change the dynamic in some way by being there. Who knows? Maybe it's the way it's supposed to be.